When you have a baby, you're never going to sleep anymore. Having a child is crazy expensive. It is really stressful. How is it having a child in Australia? We're going to talk about all those things because I recently became a dad. And now that we've got my son, a newborn, I thought it would be good to maybe not only let you guys know, in case you have been following me on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram. This is, I guess, one of the reasons why, well, not only this, but, obviously being a dad, things get a bit busier. But on this video, on this podcast episode, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about my experience, how it has been, because there might be some of you who either have already your PR or you are trying to stay in Australia for good, or maybe you might be pregnant. No one knows, right? So I wanted to tell you a bit about what to expect, or maybe tell you a few things that I heard before becoming a dad and my short experience being a dad, because my son was born about 2 weeks ago. And let's do this. Let's get started. I guess the first thing that I'll have to say is that before the baby comes and all these things, there is one important thing to mention throughout the whole episode. One is obviously, this is like a little, not disclaimer, but since I've been in Australia for a long time, I've got Medicare, basically. That's, I was like, I'm a PR, I'm a citizen. I still feel like I've got my student visa, but that's another story. That's for another episode. The point is that this is from my perspective. This may not be the same for everyone out there. But if you have got Medicare, a lot of the things that I might say may relate to you. So, okay, without further ado, let's get started. One of the things that I guess you need to start thinking of is on the pregnancy itself. What I've noticed in Australia, which was a big difference between Venezuela and Japan, is that when you go to the GP, usually in Venezuela and in Japan, usually you tend to have the same doctor, or like you have from the beginning to the end, the same doctor. This is something that is not that common in Australia, unless I guess you go private and you've got like maybe private insurance or something. We just went with the public system, and it was a bit of a shock, not in a bad way. It's just the different, right? The fact that you would have different doctors seeing you at times, or like if, for example, whenever there is an ultrasound or a scan, usually it would be done by different people. But it's something just to, I guess, be aware of. That's probably one difference. Another difference that I noticed is that, again, compared to both our countries, basically when you go to the doctor in Australia, maybe I think here we do less checks compared to other countries. So this could be a shock in a good way or in a bad way. I don't know. You let me know in the comments. If you've got any questions, please let me know. I don't know everything, but I did have a lot of questions. So here I am sharing some of these things with you. So yeah, that's another thing, that sometimes after an ultrasound we would ask, hey, when is the next scan, or when would we be checked again? Thinking that maybe the response would be, oh, come back in 2 weeks, or maybe three weeks, maybe maximum a month. But sometimes it would be like, oh, come back in 6 weeks, which is a month and a half. It doesn't sound like a lot if you are listening to me on Spotify, or if you're watching this online, you think, oh, it's a month and a half. But let me tell you, that belly starts getting big real quick, and I guess it also depends on your personality. I don't consider myself someone to be way too stressed. I think I'm more on the relaxed side. But even still, even being someone relaxed, obviously we want to make sure that everything is okay with the baby, right? So that could be another thing that might be a shock. The fact that some of the doctor visits might be spaced out, especially towards the end, where, I guess they do space out a bit more. At the beginning, not so much. Other things to think about are asking for parental leave. With Centrelink, I would recommend check on Centrelink's website. I know this is like the boring part of the podcast, but it's something to think about. Depending on your contract or your work, this will all vary. And especially it will vary obviously if you are the mom or the dad, and it will also vary because depending on your company contract, etc., you might get more parental leave, you might get less parental leave. From my mini research with people that I know, I've heard that some people can get, and this is mainly for like the moms, some moms can get like 3 to 6 months paid parental leave for the most part. Some get none. Usually what some companies do is that they hold the position. It's like you are going on holidays or like unpaid leave, and then you would get some help from the government, usually via Centrelink. And I'm not great with this, but from memory, on top of my head, I'm going to say between, and this changed recently, I should know, but please, my apologies. About let's say 3.5 months, roughly. Maybe it's a little bit less, maybe it's a bit more. So it's something to think about. For the dad, it also depends. Like I've heard stories of dads that maybe they get 2 weeks parental leave, others that get 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Luckily, at the university where I work, I got 4 weeks parental leave, so that's pretty good because it gives us time, well, it gives me time to stay at home, help out, with family, with a new family setting, and it's really good. So I would say think about those things because again, it's good to like stay organized. And I can say from my experience that both workplaces have been extremely supportive, and I suppose communication is key. But again, this would depend between you and your employer, and it will vary, from person to person. But it's something to, again, think about. Maybe in different countries there's going to be more parental leave, maybe there is less, maybe there is less paid, maybe there is more paid. I don't know. But again, in Australia, yeah, parental leave is a thing, which is good because, I'm quoting here my mate Tom. I interviewed him last year, and he was telling me, try to get as much parental leave as you can, which is good. Sometimes, little tip for both mothers and fathers, you can or you could ask for more parental leave, but it's going to be unpaid. Now, depending on your circumstances, you might say, yes, that sounds amazing, or you might say, well, no, maybe I want to go back to work a bit earlier, or, it's something that I'll let you check and decide. So one thing that I think would not necessarily scare people, but coming from a developing country, something that really, got me thinking was, having a baby is going to be very expensive, and am I going to be able to afford it, this or that? But then, after noticing that there are not too many extra expenses, there are like three. I was just talking to my wife before filming this video. I was thinking, what are some of those more expensive things? There is like, I think, three things which are like going to be probably the biggest expenses in your new, let's say, parenting journey. And these are the cot, which is where the baby is going to sleep. Then you've got, well, the cot, the mattress, and the bed sheets, right? So I'm putting all that as one thing. Then we have the car seat, because, when you go and pick up your baby from hospital, you need to put the baby in the car. So anything related to car seats, that would be another major expense. And then lastly, we've got I was going to say baby car. In Japanese they say baby car, but that is the pram. So probably, again, with these three expenses and with all the other little things I'll mention in the video, I think you can go as high as you want and as low as you want. And it'll vary, depending on your preferences and on things that you like. I remember looking at baby car seats thinking, oh my God, why is this 500, 600, 700 bucks? And, maybe for some other people, they may say, oh yeah, 700 to stay safe in the car, amazing. But for me, I just grabbed like the first one that I found. Well, not really, but in all seriousness, those are probably the three biggest things where you might spend a bit more. And again, in our experience, something where I think we are very lucky is that from friends, from family, even just from having a quick browse around, we got a lot of donations. People were giving us things like, for example, like I haven't got it here with me, but like a baby mat where, we can put the baby on the floor. Some friends gave us clothes, which again is quite good. I guess this could be another cultural thing. It reminds me of when I talked about Salvation Army in one of my episodes in the podcast a few years ago. And this could be a difference, because I suppose for some people, or maybe in some cultures, it would be like, oh, no, 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 if a baby is going to use something, it has to be all new. And it's, I guess something that would depend on you. Funny enough, after seeing some baby clothes, a part of me goes like, this is even more expensive than my whole outfit right now. I mean, say for example, I've seen like some shirts or things that are like 50, 60, 70, $80, even $100, and I'm thinking, wow, I don't have that many pieces of $100 in terms of clothing, right? I mean, well, as maybe you can tell, I'm not a fashion YouTuber. I'm an English teacher and a translator. So yeah, if you do need a document or if you want to pass IELTS and PTE, obviously get in touch. But what I'm trying to say is that, again, we received a lot of help in terms of like presents, in terms of clothes, and we did obviously still need to get a few things, but it wasn't something like, oh my god, it's like crazy expensive, we need to start, like we went in debt to cover all these things. And it really depends. For example, in our case, what I can tell you is that we found a safe, what's the word? A safe baby, not baby car, a safe car seat. And I tried to find something in the middle, not too cheap, not too expensive, and just making sure that it was safe, that I could flip it around, and I got it secondhand. Again, some people might say, Emilio, that's terrible because it needs to be new. What if something happened? I did my homework, I checked as much as I could, so, and the other thing is we're not using it every day. I also got a separate one for when the baby is around 6 months onwards. And where we spent a bit more was on the pram. So our pram was a bit more expensive. From memory, I'm going to, say around 1800, I think, or 15, 1600. Let's say 1800 because it sounds really expensive. But I mean, that's something that I had to, have a chat with my wife, and we decided, okay, maybe we may not spend too much on clothes. We are getting some help, or like there are other things that we are covering. We're gonna spend a bit more on the pram because we're gonna be using it to go to parks, to move around the city, maybe go to a shopping center, move around, etc. And we decided to spend a bit more on that. Depending on the situation, maybe some people might say, look, I want to spend a lot on everything, or you might say, no, I'm going to spend a little bit on these other things. And again, something to think about. I think a good analogy has to do with traveling, and regardless of where you go and how long you stay in a place, there is always going to be a budget in question, right? Like it reminds me when people ask me about traveling in Japan. I say, look, you can go to Tokyo and you could stay in an Airbnb or in a capsule hotel, or like in a more basic hotel, or let's say in more basic accommodation, and save some money there. Or obviously you could go to a place like Crown Casino in Japan, or like somewhere where you spend I don't know, $200, $300, $400, $500 a night. So it really depends, It depends what type of experience you want. I guess you being a parent, you need to think, okay, what is going to be the most important for me, And that's, I guess, one side of all the big expenses. Then you have other things like, for example, this sterilizer. You're gonna be using this to, clean baby bottles, to make sure that whatever you give your baby is clean. And then, of course, there are other things. This is actually a present, but just to show you some extra things you could get. This is not like something you have to get, but this is, I think it's called a rocking chair. And this is good because you could be doing something and you put the baby somewhere next to you or close to you. And look, just like this, the list goes on and on. Then you have like the bibs, baby bottles, and I feel like with almost every category, you could go as expensive as you want or as cheap as you want. And again, you may have a budget and then you play around with that budget. Now, let's talk about an extra expense that we chose to take, because maybe this might be something that relates to some of you watching or listening. And if you are watching on YouTube, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. Let's continue. So I think that extra expense that we had was that when my wife went to the GP, her GP said, look, you have two options when it comes to ultrasounds. You could go with like bulk billing, which means that Medicare covers everything or most of it, or you could pay a bit more and then go to like a private clinic or a private, center, so you can get your ultrasounds done there. We were told that it would be better if we go private because some of the private clinics that the GP recommended were, let's say, more, they basically had like better equipment. So our logic was, okay, look, we are saving money in some other things. Maybe let's do a few ultrasounds, or let's do all the ultrasounds with like these clinics. And this also meant that because it is doing it with like a private clinic, we could technically have as many ultrasounds as we wanted. So we didn't have that problem that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, right? Where I was telling you, okay, for example, you have one appointment or one ultrasound today, and then the next one is in a month and a half or 2 months, or let's say far away, right? But if you wanted to do it earlier, you could always just, book another appointment. It's just going to be an extra cost. I think we spend roughly on each of the ultrasounds about 170, and I think we would get back like around $60. So let's say that about $100 each ultrasound. So it's not cheap, but it's also not crazy expensive when you think about it. And it's hard to tell you how many we had. We had a few. So that was like an extra cost that we had there. It may or may not apply to you. And other than that, I think we didn't have any other major expense, let's say. And so it was interesting because I guess the other last bit before we talk about the experience of being in the hospital, etc., is that, well, obviously one room where I used to film, now that's the baby's room, and that's all right. This is, I guess, the beauty of having a laptop. You can basically work anywhere, so I often stay in one area of the house, but whenever I need to, I could move, and work somewhere else. But other than that, there are not too many changes. Obviously, you have the sleep, but I'll talk about that in just a bit. And when it comes to going to hospital, usually something that is important to also tell you is that in our case, my wife wanted to do a water birth, where you are in a tub and then you give birth, because the whole idea was to do natural if possible. I guess that's also a culture shock. In Australia, it's not like, for example, in Venezuela, where in Venezuela the doctor asks you and you can choose to say, hey doctor, I want a C-section for whatever reason, I'm not here to point or excuse anyone, etc. But from what I've heard, in Venezuela, you could choose, right? If you want a C-section or if you want natural. In Australia, it's all about going natural birth. And C-section is almost like the last resort, the last option in case something went wrong or God knows what happened, because, hey, I'm not a doctor. So all I can tell you is that we were always told, we were always encouraged, that's I think the better word, we were always encouraged to go natural birth. Luckily, that's what, my wife wanted. And I said, okay, no worries, easy peasy, all good there. And then, thinking of this water birth, basically what happened is that, to make the long story short, you can ask in public hospitals throughout Australia. I guess it depends on every hospital, but like where we were going to, go for birth, basically we were told that there were some of those, I think almost every, if not all of the rooms, they would have a tub. The only problem was that it was hard for the hospital to tell us if there's going to be a nurse who's trained to do the water birth. But if that was an option, you could always take it. In our case, that did not happen because my wife's broke waters probably suddenly, because this was before the expected due date. I think that's another tip. And I totally relate, and I remember so clearly what one of my mates at work said to me. This really, really good colleague and friend of mine, I was asking this person so many questions every week. And basically this person told me, Emilio, welcome to the world of uncertainty, because you never know. anything. You can plan things, but you never know. Things will change suddenly on the spot. And that's actually what happened in our case, because I had planned everything. Okay, this is the student timetable. This will happen, bam, 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 okay. And then that's all good. But all that changed when, one night waters broke 2 weeks before the expected due date. And then it's like, okay, we have to go to hospital. And then we went there and we were sent back home again because there weren't many contractions and things like that. So other than that, then we just had to wait. I think that's another difference in let's say the hospital system or in terms of giving birth. Maybe some countries might be a bit more like Venezuela, where it's like, your waters broke, or you are like almost there. Stay in the hospital, we want to make sure that you're okay. I think in Australia it's more, and maybe there are other countries like this, I'm sure. Australia is more of the mindset of, we want you to be at home, we don't want you to stay too long at the hospital if it's not needed. We only want you to be here when it's time to, to give birth, because at home you're going to be relaxed, it's going to be like your temple, let's say, and then you can just basically wait there. It's better than having you wait here, whether it is in a room, etc. And maybe some people don't want to have too many things to be checked all the time. So I guess, let me know in the comments. Do you prefer more the style from Venezuela, from South America, where the hospital is there, they keep you there up until you give birth? Or where the doctor, where you have the same doctor? Or you are more, let's say, on the Aussie side of things, where you don't mind having a different doctor, or maybe you don't mind when you are sent home. So in our case, we were sent home twice. Then we had like big contractions and I said, hey, I'm not a nurse, we have to go now. And then the option of water birth was not available, but hey, that's, it's, thanks God, everything went well. And then my wife had to stay a night at hospital. This is something that I think would be the same throughout the country. But if you are in Melbourne, I can almost guarantee you that the day when your baby is born, you will stay a night, or the mom will stay a night. There is an option for the dad to stay as well, but it depends on which room is available. Then, that happens and the baby, it's basically obviously born. The hospital will do a few checks and things. And this is where one good tip comes into place. Now, this next part of the video has to do with useful things or things that you have to know as a new parent, okay? So there is one thing that you will receive, and it is this. This right here is the Green Book. I remember meeting some people telling me, Emilio, when you become a dad, you will get a Green Book. And I was like, what is the Green Book? This is basically a book that you will carry with you in all visits with the doctor, with anything related to your baby. And this is really good because here you've got, look, it's maybe hard to see, but you've got a stack. You've got a lot of information here. So from things like who to contact if you have any questions, information about when your baby was born, anything to do related with vaccines, hospital checks or checks with the nurses. So this is really good, really handy. I'm really happy that I can show you this, because when I was told about the Green Book, I had no idea. It's like, what is the Green Book? Is it a booklet? Is it a big book? Is it a small book? So it's a bit like a folder, and this is something that will be really, really useful. Then, other things that you will get from the hospital are maybe it's going to change. I'm going to show you what we received. So the first thing that we got from hospital, I was really surprised because I said, who gave you this? We didn't have any visitors other than me and some family. Anyways, this bag right here was a present that we got. And in this bag, we've got a few things. For example, we've got like a cloth. You could use it to wrap your baby, your newborn. Then we've got a sleeping bag. And let's see, what else do we have? Really important, safety kit, first aid kit, and some more clothes. We've also got here Oh, yeah, this is like a nappy changing mat. So this could be quite good if you are on the go and you need a mat, or maybe if you want to change a nappy, I guess, somewhere else. That could be quite useful. Other than that, we've got some toys for the baby, like a theta, you know, when teeth start growing. I'm pretty sure this is for that. Yeah, theta. Cool. Other than that, what else we've got? We've got here some books. So, not in a particular order, but we've got one, two books. So ABC fruit salad, nice. 3 books, and we've got here, like the baby bundle I was talking about. So the government calls it baby bundle. And there is also this other book, and this is, an Aboriginal book, so really nice having all of these ones. And other than that, I think this covers this one. Wait, there is one more thing. You cannot forget a toothbrush. Gonna be really useful in the future. So here we've got all these things, but there is more. So let me show you. We've also got this bag from Bounty, a new parent pack. So if we open it up, we get your new best friend, which is going to be some nappies. Huggies is not sponsoring this video, I'm just showing you. I am sponsoring this video, so if you know someone who needs a translation or to need to pass IELTS and PTE, send them my details, send them this video. We've got another book. This one is about water, so I guess it's going to have like a few tips about that. For the mothers, so we have here some pads. These will be really useful if you are breastfeeding. And we've got some wipes as well. And some creams. Let me show you some creams. This could be also quite useful. I don't know if this is something that everyone gets, or if maybe I was lucky or we were lucky. Another theta, so all these things will definitely be very useful, as the baby gets older. Then we have one from Big W. So let's see. Right here we've got just like an extra bag. Maybe here we can put more things. Is there something in? I don't know, just like a coupon or something. Other than that, we have one of these for your newborn, if you're giving them milk, food, anything. Here we've got a cloth and another nappy, also quite useful. And here we have some more baby clothes. And of course, some more wipes. Will that be helpful? It will be very, very helpful. I guess there is one thing I also have to mention, especially with nappies. Nappies are this, by the way, for if you are watching from the US or like American English, nappy is diaper, yeah? You remember when I was talking about budgeting and this and that? I think nappies could be one thing where people think, oh, I'm going to spend a fortune in nappies. And that could be true. It all depends on your baby though. Some babies could be using like the more basic nappies. Maybe you as a parent, you want to give your child the most expensive nappy, and that's okay. But what I'm trying to say with the nappies is that even that could be a difference. Like I just bought a few different ones, My Venezuelan mindset was like, I need to fill the room with nappies. But then, luckily a friend told me, no, don't buy always the same ones, buy different ones. And at least in my experience so far, I've noticed that our baby hasn't had any, any rash on the skin or anything with like the really, let's say, cheap, bad nappies. I mean, the cheap one doesn't have to be bad, but let's say the more basic nappies, or like if you try the premium option, so far I think all options have been good. So what I would recommend you do is try all of them, or like try a few different ones. It's the same thing with baby bottles. I was about to buy a big set of baby bottles. Maybe a lot of dads think this way. It's like, okay, instead of buying one, I'm just gonna buy 15 and then I don't have to buy them anymore. But the lady at the store was so nice, she told me, look, maybe it's best if you don't spend too much money on the bottles, because what happens if you get this brand and then the baby doesn't like it? So I ended up just getting like a few different ones just to try. And so far, luckily, the baby likes all of them. So that's, good news, happy days. I guess the same thing could be said with nappies. Try to not get overly stressed. I guess a lot of the time, I mean, there are gonna be things where you can get very picky, very serious, but with things like nappies, with things like baby cream, and with bottles, I would say just try a few, buy a few, and then see which one resonates more with your baby. And then that'll be probably like the easiest way to go about it. Another thing that I have to tell you is that, and this is important because I guess it would happen also in countries, or sorry, with people with the same culture. But in general, I noticed, and I'm quoting here a friend. This friend told me, Emilio, you will get a lot of unsolicited advice. And I think something that is important to tell parents or to have as a reminder for you and for me is that sometimes people may tell you things or may suggest things, and I don't think they are trying to hurt, they're not trying to annoy you, they're not trying to make you feel bad or anything along those lines, they're trying to help. But sometimes you get advice or feedback that maybe is unsolicited, so you need to be aware of that those things could happen, they could come up. We haven't had any bad experiences, touch wood, it stays that way, but it's something worth letting you know. It's funny because, for example, to my baby, I talked to the baby in Spanish, and I noticed that one of the nurses was like, good surprised. First, she looked at me like, this guy is crazy, because I'm not the best doing like, that cute voice, like, ah, la, 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 talking like that to a baby. I talk to my baby like I talk to any other person in Spanish, or like any family member, whatever, however we want to put it. And I remember that when she first saw me, she was like, wow, this guy is crazy. He's talking to a newborn like to an adult. But then this is like, I guess, a good positive shock. She's like, oh, this is so good. It's so good that you're talking to him in your mother tongue. And it's great, because when the child grows up, this person will have, an extra language, this and that. So yeah, it's important to like let you know that some of those things could come in a good way. Maybe it could also come in a bad way, especially with, for example, breastfeeding. I've heard a lot of cases of new moms being told things. What things, to be honest, I don't know, because I'm not very good with gossiping, but I was told like be careful when it comes to breastfeeding, because Australia, the same way that it can be very relaxed with other things, it could be a bit more strict. And we were told just to be mindful that a lot of people would encourage breastfeeding, maybe a bit too much. Again, we are very lucky in the sense that, my wife has been breastfeeding the baby. That's good news. But if you, or whoever's watching this, if you know someone who's a new mom and they're having difficulties with breastfeeding, I guess don't put any extra pressure on them, because maybe nurses or maybe like the system would already place some pressure. And I've heard that some moms can feel very bad about this. So I guess my advice with this is just, it's one of those topics where you need to be a bit careful on how you handle it. For some people, in our case, we were thinking, look, if the worst thing happens, like if there is no breast milk, again, we just go with formula. I guess that could be also an extra expense. And sometimes if you look at prices of formula, you think, oh my God, that's so expensive. But if you think about it, maybe it's going to be, it depends, right? I'm just making a bit of math. I'm going to say anywhere between 20, no, maybe 20 is too low. Let's say $30 to $80 a week, which is not, it's not super cheap, but it's also, oh my God, I'm going on debt. I have to get 2 jobs to pay for this, type of expensive. So it could be a cost, but also, again, that may depend, maybe some babies take formula, and maybe if you go with like A2 or like a really high-end brand, maybe everything goes well. Maybe your baby doesn't like some of those formulas, and maybe you could get a different brand. Again, it's all these things really vary from case to case. And yeah, I think it is important to like be aware of that. If that happens, the breastfeeding, If it doesn't happen, sorry, just for you, if you will be a new mom in the future, if you are a new mom, because hopefully maybe some people can come back and watch this video, what I would say to you is don't, life can be way too stressful. You will have so many new things. Don't make it extra stressful because something happened with breast milk. I know I'm not a doctor, but from, from what I can tell in terms of humanity continuing, it's not the end of the world if you don't have breast milk. But again, I'm not an expert in this topic, so for any health related questions about that, talk to your doctor. And that would be a good summary. I guess just to wrap up, one other thing that it's important to mention is the sleep, because a lot of the times people wonder, or you hear, oh, you're never going to sleep again. And look, yes, it is a change. It's not like I say, oh, let me sleep, and I just go to sleep and don't wake up. Although in my case, I'm someone who I don't have light sleep. There could be like an earthquake and maybe I don't wake up. But obviously, I think there is like an instinct, something with mothers that, like after giving birth, if there is a bit of a sound, my wife is extra alert, So with that, I think for the mom, it's going to be a bit challenging. For the dad as well, because sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes I would wake up at night or like just to check that everything is okay. And remember that at the end of the day, we get used to different routines. So it might be that yes, there's going to be like a season or some time where the sleep is going to change. Literally 2 days ago, we just had a checkup with the nurse, and the nurse was telling us that most likely the baby's sleeping patterns will be changing in the next few weeks. So it's not a surprise if the baby wakes up a bit more at night, which is reassuring because sometimes as a new parent, there are lots of new things. And this is where, having those thoughts like, oh, am I doing this right? Or, oh, maybe this is good, this is bad. It could be way too, you could be putting too much extra pressure on yourself. And this is where, knowing these things in advance could help. I really hope that by watching this video, not only you have a good time from, hearing the news about me being a dad and having this mini update, but also for anyone that that is thinking to become a parent, someone who may be a parent soon, maybe maybe you've got a friend who is pregnant, And by the way, say congratulations to that friend. And don't forget to send them this video. I hope that you found it useful. Do let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I'll do my best to help you out in any way I can. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I'll see you on the next video. And until then, I'll probably see you, maybe next week. Take care and bye for now. See ya.